All right, well, this is the story that's got the world talking this morning. Derek Chauvin has been found guilty of murdering George Floyd. The former police officer will be sentenced in 8 weeks' time and could be sent to prison for 4 decades. However, Chauvin is expected to appeal this verdict. Floyd's death sparked Black Lives Matter protests around the world. International relations expert Professor John Stremlau speaking to us about what happens now. Prof, a very good morning to you. Thanks so much for your time. America set to be at a crossroads over this verdict. President Joe Biden hailing it a victory for America. Do you agree?
Well, it certainly is a step forward, that's for sure. And Joe Biden is right to call attention to justice, but it is accountability first and foremost. And it will be interesting to see whether or not the Congress passes the George Foreman Police Reform Act, which is pending. That would really help to solidify the progress made by this conviction. But it's an unfortunate incident on all sides, and Biden has handled it extremely well, and so has Kamala Harris, in reaching out to the family and reaching out to the public and reminding everyone that it's systemic racism at the heart of this problem, and America has not come to terms with that in 400 years.
Well, this is certainly, it has been a political hot potato. It's going to become even more of one. How should Biden and his administration actually handle this? How should they tread with this going forward?
Well, just recall for a moment, you know, in his inaugural, he talked about systemic racism for the first time in any inaugural. In the course of this trial, he's been very careful, but at the same time, as soon as the jury was sequestered yesterday, he phoned the family, and he phoned the family after the verdict, and he's shown an empathy and a concern with the plight of black families in America. I think he's been sensitized to this through his political career, but also serving as Barack Obama's vice president, and appointing Kamala Harris as his vice president. Both of them yesterday, after the verdict was rendered, tried to remind Americans that this is only the first step in a long and difficult road, but we better travel that road and travel it now.
Prof, this is not the first time or the last time we're going to see a tragedy like this, and of course involving police officers as well. I mean, even after George Floyd's death, we continue to see killings by police officers. I mean, I think even last week there were 2 cases alone, one of them even involving a 13-year-old boy. So you have to wonder, how do they make sure, I mean, that Derek Chauvin, of course, many might say he's just been made an example of. He's the guy who probably has to take the fall for all of those who came before him. But do you think that this will serve as something of a deterrent? Do you see that, or does it all depend on sort of what authorities do with this after this?
Again, as I say, a step forward. This is the first time in the history of the state of Minnesota that a white police officer has been convicted for the murder of a black person. The first time. And that the black community in Minneapolis, which came north through the Great Migration after Reconstruction failed in the South, has been isolated. It's been segregated. It's been deprived of educational opportunities, job opportunities. All of the issues of equality that we grapple with down here have been concentrated primarily on the black minority, only 11% of the American public. But the issues are the same. It's justice, it's due process, it's rule of law, and it's democracy that everyone has to participate in inclusiveness and in unity. And that's a hard road to hoe, particularly after the history of 400 years of slavery.
And of course, they have to make sure that this does not become an anti-policing issue and an anti-forces or even with individual officers, that this doesn't actually become that kind of take, that America doesn't sway that way, where we now see that their authority holds nothing, holds no water.
No, they've been very careful in saying this is not a defund police, it is a reform of the police, and it is for the sake of the society that we don't demand too much of the police, but we circumscribe, hold them accountable, and be transparent. Don't forget, if that teenage black girl had not taken the photographs of George Floyd's murder, we might not have gotten this conviction. And it's a reminder, 30 years ago, it was Rodney King, and there was an amateur filmmaker. So the kind of work that amateur filmmakers can do, and journalists who, like yourself, are willing to amplify the story may push the society in the right direction, but it's a long, hard struggle.
And it's going to be a long road ahead. Yeah, it starts with the issue with police at the moment, and of course it has to extend to all other aspects of society there, not just in America, the world over. Thanks very much, Professor John Stremlau there, just breaking down the verdict there, the guilty verdict for Derek Chauvin, found guilty of murdering George Floyd.